Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of GLP's 10 out of 10. And today we have with us Alex Reardon. Born in London, Alex got into music early, becoming a classically trained musician and earning a scholarship to Radley College in Oxford. His lighting career started by just giving a friend a helping hand before deciding that there may actually be a career in it, and then learning the ropes as a lampy and then as a programmer. Notably, one of the first whole hog programmers through his childhood friendship with one of the original Flying Pigs, Nick Archdale. Alex's design career began in the new wave genre of UK music, working with artists such as Adam Ant, Tears for Fears, and Duran Duran. Moving to Los Angeles in 1998, Alex then began taking on set design duties as well as lighting designer for acts such as Disturbed, John Legend, and the Dixie Chicks, a show which earned him a Parnelli Award nomination as Lighting Designer of the Year. Continuing to evolve, Alex then added the role of creative director to his resume, creating numerous award shows, performances for his clientele, including Nick Jonas, Fifth Harmony, and 30 Seconds to Mars. Whilst his client list grows longer and longer, Alex is now design partner and president of Silent House, a global award-winning design agency based in Los Angeles, where he continues to use his design vision of combining musicality with an appreciation of form and function. In his own words, the success of any design relies on three elements being in perfect balance: aesthetics, logistics, and budget. Welcome, Alex Reardon.
Thank you very much. What a glowing introduction. I'd forgotten half of that, to be honest.
It's all distant
memoir for the aging mind.
There we go. I'm glad I could spark a few little flashbacks for you. That design philosophy that you have, as I was researching, that text, it comes up again and again and again. That's something that stuck with you, it seemed like, throughout your design career.
Yeah, it has. I think when I started off designing shows, I did and actually I can't help myself these days as well, but it will be rationalized to something that finds those three bars balanced. But the balance of those things is, I think, what differentiates a designer from an artist.
Okay, right.
If I wanted to just create things with no concept of money or logistics, then I'd be an artist.
Right.
And it reminds me of another phrase I've used ad nauseam, which is to quote my dad, who's an architect, where he said that the function of a designer is to be as creative as any fine artist, but to a specification.
Right.
So the specification with a tour design specifically is, will it fit in the number of trucks they can afford? Will it fit in the venue? Does it work? And I think it's really important to keep those things in mind. And from time to time, I do see designs, flash past me that I just think, what were you thinking? Because there's no way even on a scrap of paper that is going to work.
Right.
And part of me wants to kind of tip my cap to the sales chops of whatever designer came up with it, because it's obviously insane. Then again, why would we avoid insanity when we work for people who are probably certifiable anyway? So I think there's an element of all of it to be found. I think the first pass ideas are always out there, and then but even when pitching them, I'm very, very careful when pitching an out there concept to an artist and saying, this is just the thought. There will be a financial issue with this, probably. There will probably be some sort of logistical constraints as well. And we will rationalize this concept by taking into account those other two buckets and come up with something that balances those three things together so that it works and so that you make money at the end of the tour.
Right. That's a great way to approach it. Yeah. And obviously you've built a successful career off of that. So fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank
you. We've got our 10 questions for you. So let's dive in. Yeah. The first one is, what was your first show as a designer?
I've been racking my mind trying to remember, because I got to go way back through the hazy days to remember exactly which was the first show that I was actually the designer of. And it could have been Adam Ant, but the first show I went out as a co-designer, where I actually had some input in it, was as a co-designer working ostensibly with, but in reality under the legend that is Peter Barnes,
Right. Yeah.
Snarler himself. And it was an East 17 tour, which for those watching now, it was a boy band of some renown at the time. And I was officially the LD, and he was the sort of set designer, but I didn't know what I was doing. So he just said, look, we'll call you the LD as well. And I was basically being a sponge and learning everything I possibly could.
Right.
Because he knew everything I'd ever need to learn at that time. And he's a wonderful human being. And I got on with him very well indeed. But it was a really hard tour. I was like board op, crew chief, tech, I mean, everything. And there were only 3 of us on the crew. And it was one of those things where easy to do in your 20s, impossible in your 50s.
Right.
But it was great fun with it. But then again, you do when you're that young.
Yes. Yeah. But it sounds like a bit kind of in at the deep end with all of those responsibilities.
Yeah, and like much in my life, I kind of dived in without doing too much research, which is generally a bad idea. But sometimes it works. Like when I moved to America, it was on an impulse. I happened to be in Los Angeles. I thought I'd pop up and go and see the guys at LSD. So I popped into Nick Jackson's office and said, how about you get me some work permit and I'll come and work here and do icon stuff. And he barely even looked up and you're all right. Next thing I was landing at LAX thinking, what the fuck have I done?
Oops. Literally winging it.
Yeah. But seemed to work out in the end. The thing is that you can always go back. And I think people forget that. I mean, if it was just me, I wasn't married, no kids. I was only gambling myself.
Right.
And if it didn't work out, I could just jump on a plane and go back to England.
That's true. Yeah, that's right. Keep a door open backwards, and then it'll always be all right. Yeah. There we are. I'm sure, obviously, through all those hazy days and up until now, you've obviously worked on a tremendous number of different shows and different designs, and I'm sure they all went swimmingly smoothly. Right. Have you got any kind of Spinal Tap moments that you were willing to share?
Yeah, actually. And I'm not going to mention the band's name. Okay. But I arrived in LA in January of '98. Later on that year, I found myself on tour with a very well-known heavy metal band from the West Midlands. Okay. And we were in Cleveland, and the budget didn't stretch to a Marley. And in this old cranky theater that they were performing on, there were little cracks in the stage floor, and you could see down into where the dressing rooms were. Okay. And they couldn't find the stage. So we were in Cleveland with a heavy metal band who couldn't find the stage. Right. And I thought, I'm done. I can retire. It's just perfect.
That's it. Stop right now.
In terms of things going wrong, it used to happen quite a lot. I think generally, because I've been doing this since I was 20 and I'm 55 now. So when I started, it was kind of the early days of things like, DMX, what's that?
Right.
And we'd run analog snakes, and there was still a lot of people making things themselves with a bit of a hammer and some chewing gum, and I come up with this thing. And it was actually on a tour. I'd forgotten about this. We're talking about this. I was working as a projectionist, something I had no idea and should never have been allowed to do, on a tour for a chap called Jason Donovan, who was an Australian soap star that became a sort of pop icon for a while, and working for the Spotco.
Right.
Which, I mean, just that phrase, working for the Spotco, most people of that age, that have already pre-filled in the rest of the conversation.
Right.
It was a Spotco gig, all right?
The expectations are set. Yeah.
Yeah, done. Okay, so Spotco gig, and lovely. I mean, talk about, that, mind you, if it hadn't been for Spotco, there'd been no whole hog. So there was that going on.
Yeah. So
the Spotco gig, and I was out there as a projectionist and operating Dataton, running carousel projectors that were hung under a truss in front, downstage of the downstage lighting truss.
Right.
But they've been upgraded to have a new bulb, so the heat was causing dramas with the slides going in and out. I mean, it was a old carousel projector mounted too high across a whole truss. Out front, we had a 5K projector with a single slide of a globe or something to spin around. And someone at the Spotco had made an image rotator, which is a very smart name for basically the very speed motor off a mirror ball, some bits of metal, springs, and a little rubber grommet, and you kind of unpinch this thing and put this enormous 5K single slide in, and then just change the rate of rotation to the little chronograph pencil mark.
Perfect.
Which seemed like a stupid idea at the time, so why not? It was a Spotco gig. So what would happen usually is that at some point during its travel, and it would take two of us because we're all trying to hold on to the corners of this thing.
Right.
Someone would lose concentration, and the spring tension inside would catapult the slide across the arena.
Right.
And part of the image slide is a gate to mitigate the beam spread. Now, once the image has gone in entirety, we'd basically cover half of an arena with white light from a big 5K projector while we both dived under the seating of all the audience members, pushing them out of the way to try and found it, hey, and trying to get it back in before the song ended. So there was quite a lot of that going on. There was quite a lot of like, what does this do?
Right.
Sorry. Of course, now as they say, you tell the kids that these days, and they don't believe you.
Right.
Because it was the Wild West, and it was brilliant as a result of it. And I'm very glad those crazy, wild and woolly days were there, because I think it created a baseline availability to do a couple of things. One is to innovate, which is very important.
Yep.
It also found a home for people that were square pegs in round holes. And I think everybody I've met, well, maybe not everybody, but everybody that I kind of grew up in the business with from back then, I think to a greater or lesser extent has felt a bit like a fish out of water. And there's something about the kind of circus mentality of touring from the late 80s, early 90s that it was just a really good place to be, full of other quirky lunatics who were just running around the world trying to make it happen. And that was absolutely brilliant. And it also enabled us to learn how to deal with things when it goes wrong. And I've said for a while now, you can pretty much tell how long someone's been working in production. It doesn't matter what they do in it. You could be an accountant on a tour. You could be hopefully not a rigger, but you could be, any one of the jobs. And when something goes wrong, how that person reacts to that event is a pretty good indicator of how long they've been on in the world of production, because a guitar string will break. A bulb will blow, and having the catalogue of disasters behind you enables you to do two things: one, which is not panic when it goes wrong, and not yell at people, and be able to sort out the problem quickly,
right?
Because you have a wealth of experience of other things exploding that you can go, oh, right. Let's do that. And I often wonder whether or not the young lampies of today would get that, because the shows we were doing back then were so lo-fi and physically small that if something went wrong, it wasn't cataclysmic. Whereas if something goes wrong on a major stadium tour now, it has a whole different potential of catastrophe, far greater, I feel, with staged things moving up and down and things whizzing past. And I think it's an interesting shift to see in the business.
Yeah, there's a lot more technicality today in shows, absolutely. So
100%, and I'm very glad that the me of 30 years ago is not the person I'm relying on to get these highly technological shows happening. Because I was a complete muppet that really should never have been allowed anywhere near anything. And now we have guys who've graduated MIT, and they are. Yeah. I mean, I'll design something, and another thing I've done for many years is I usually either call a rigger or someone and say, I think I've broken the laws of physics. Can you just have a look at this before I pitch it? But no, there are some incredibly intelligent people. I mean, could you imagine developing XR technology now if we'd been trying to do it back then? Oh, absolutely impossible. Like, you've got to be mad. What are you talking about? That's right. Yeah, we'd never.
Exactly.
Just shut up.
Put the drugs down and let's get back to work.
What are you talking about?
That's
So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely fantastic. Yep, absolutely fantastic. And you're right. I don't think they get taught that so much in college. All of that, what to do, when to go, when stuff goes wrong. It is one of those experiences just through getting out there and doing it.
Yeah, and the fact that there are people that can go to college to learn this is novel.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
not anymore. But I mean, when I was starting it, you didn't imagine turning up at a load-in with a degree in. Like, what are you talking about? A degree?
A degree, really?
A degree?
But I guess 53 Northfield Road was a bit of a college on its own, right?
That was. Yeah, I suppose in one. I mean, I'm just trying to find an analogous college. I mean, it was Animal House with Oxbridge level brains and some sort of bacchanalian Roman all mixed into this old wooden tea warehouse.
Right.
With the most extraordinary people bouncing off the walls inside.
A lot of square pegs and round holes in that building.
Yeah, and wonderful for it. I mean, I just think that is those are memories that albeit are hazy, will never leave me. And the friends that I made there, I may not have seen them in 25 years, but these are people who I will remember forever and care very, very, very deeply about.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Brilliant. Okay, so kind of continuing on from that, what would you say is the best piece of advice anyone has ever given you, either professionally or otherwise?
I'd say there would be two.
Okay.
In terms of our specific profession and specifically running a show, right? When I used to run as board op, and these days I can't even find the power button, so that's sort of moved on. But Patrick Woodruff very wisely said, whatever you do, don't make the same mistake twice.
Okay.
So in the days of actually running the show rather than it being time coded, if you, for example, hit a strobe when it was a ballad, really obvious, and everyone went, fuck. And you got called into production afterwards on that little crackle on the radio, oh shit.
Yeah.
And he said, you can get away with doing anything else wrong, just not that, because that's the one thing that everyone will be watching for. Right. Management might come out front of house just to make sure that thing doesn't go wrong, so they don't get yelled at by the artist. So never make the same mistake twice. The other bit of advice that was given to me, which is actually brilliant, is from my stepdad, actually. And he said, never leave someone pissed off with you. Never make an enemy. He said because never on, and I've had, it's something I've been very, very cautious about. And I think all of us from time to time, when under enormous amounts of stress, can, in that moment of stress, just blurt out something mean to someone. And I assume that I've done it. I've seen others do it. And I understand where it comes from. But if you can be sentient enough in that intense pressure to understand what the other people, subordinates in the weird pecking order of a show are doing and the pressure they're feeling, don't be casually mean to people. Right. Don't just because you're in a bad mood doesn't mean you should pass it on to someone else, is what I'm really saying. And I think this maybe should be taught in colleges. Like if you find yourself as the head of a department within a show, understand that part of the job is to absorb or let pass through you in a kind of Zen way stress that will be exerted on you by people above you because they're in stress as well. Right. So don't get yelled at and turn around and start yelling at someone else. Just understand that person needs to vent. And that's also really important. And I don't know, just something I try and tell people. Yeah.
No, that's right. And then it results obviously in a more positive environment, a more positive workplace. Negativity is quite, scathing. And
if it does happen, go and say sorry. There's nothing wrong with saying sorry. Like, God doesn't look, oh, I'm so sorry I blew up and it wasn't you. And I just did a thing with a thing and a bang and sorry.
Fix it.
Just I suppose it's an extension of the golden rule, really, I suppose.
Yes. Yeah. There we go. Fantastic. Two great pieces of advice. Again, you've done a lot already in your career so far, what would you say is your proudest achievement professionally?
I think I'd answer that in two parts. There's the creative side of it, and then there's the business side of it. I think creatively, designing and directing Tyler the Creator's performance at the Grammys last year was an enormously successful creative endeavor. The career highlight would be when Baz asked me to become president of Silent House. It's an extraordinary dynamic of very, very creative, brilliant, kind, funny, generous people. And that's a real honor.
Yes. I mean, it's certainly a company that has really, taken show design and show production to a whole another level as they've progressed. And as you say, it's a fantastic group of people who are able to do that through creativity, technical skill, and everything that's involved in making something happen.
It's still, I mean, I still get the sensation that we're making it up as we go along. That might be just my innate sense of, how can I put it? I think by the broadest of brushstrokes, there tend to be two types of people in the creative industries. There are those who believe they are the second coming.
Right.
And then there's the rest of us who think we're charlatans about to be exposed at any minute.
Right.
I'm definitely in the second category. Perhaps as a reflection of my uselessness as a waggly mirror tech back in 30 years ago. So there's still that kind of like, I wonder what this does. Should we try that? But as a result of us all being in this, when we are able to be in this office together, we do collaborate really well together. And case in point was the Khalid design that I did with Baz, not last year, year before. Tamlin happened to be walking past the office while we were looking for a solution. And Baz said, "Oh, do you know how we can do this thing?" And she went, "Oh yeah, you use this stuff. I just used it on the show." And it's right. it's that opportune to be able to have that. And then we have amazing support from the studio. Vincent Richards runs the studio, and their skill sets in C4D and Photoshop and Vectorworks and all that sort of far outstrip any of ours, which is really, really useful, because I found myself working in Cinema 4D more than Vectorworks, and I found that I would subconsciously limit the design to what I knew I could draw.
Right.
Whereas if you have people who don't have that limitation, whatever you can think of and very poorly sketch, they can realize, and as a result, the end result tends to be better even than the concept, because it evolves within the company, and to be president of that is extraordinary.
Yeah, I can imagine. Makes every day just fun to go to the office.
Yeah. Even if it's a commute in Los Angeles.
There we go. Of course, so many of your projects take you away from home for short or extended periods of time. But when you're back at home and you're kind of off the clock, what do you normally do in your downtime?
Yes. Well, my great passion is motorcycles.
Right.
I think there's nothing more wonderful to clean the static out of your brain than giving it some around the twisty canyon roads of the Santa Monica Mountains. It's a real luxury to be able to have that access to those roads in LA, living here, and it's something that keeps me sane. I also play a bit of piano. I got a music scholarship to Radley when I was a kid, so I've kept playing a bit of music. Again, it's just sort of self-therapy, I suppose. Puts me in a happy place, and it's something to do with getting away from the phone and the work and everything for a while, and just shifting gears. Yeah,
and just putting yourself in a completely different zone.
And if you're getting a bit of a baton on a motorcycle, you can't really think about anything else. And if you are, you shouldn't.
That's true.
You really shouldn't be considering anything else at that moment. Other than, was that a policeman?
You'll only be doing it for a short time, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, bikes and music are my thing.
There we go. And great. And as you said, Southern California is a great place for both of those, but especially the biking.
Oh yeah. Any petrol head's gonna love it down here.
You've obviously, again, worked all the way around the world in different venues. Would you say that you've got a particular favorite venue anywhere?
Yeah, I read that question when you kindly sent me the questions in advance, and for the life of me, most venues tend to blur into each other, and then I realized that there are kind of two metrics for identification as to which are the good venues. And the obvious one, which I think is actually the wrong one, was my first reaction to was which has the best facilities, which is the cleanest, which is all that sort of stuff. But I think actually the best venue is the venue where I've experienced the best gigs.
Right.
And that, without any doubt and by a mile, is Brixton Academy. And I don't even know why.
Right.
I've gone and I'm going to touch it. Every time I've gone through the academy, it's been a belter of a gig.
Right.
The audience have been into it. They've been singing, going mad. I mean, I've done heavy metal. I've done pop acts. I've done raves there. I have never had a bad gig at Brixton Academy, and I've no idea why. I mean, there are some pristine, brand new, perfect arenas that can handle a gajillion trucks in the dock, and the push is 2.5 inches, and the rigging beams every 2.5 millimeters. I mean, all the specs, the great. I'm obviously exaggerating, but you can take those pristine arenas, but after a month, they blend.
Right.
They all blend. But the academy in Brixton, I've had nothing but really amazing moments.
Right.
Where that collective vibe that we pick up on as animals has been just blown the roof off.
Right. Yeah. I guess there's something about, one of those, as you say, it's a worn-in venue. It's got, the history is in the walls, and there's just something about it. I guess the audience have certain expectations when they go along. They know that they're in for a good time as well. And just,
it could be. I mean, like I said, there's nothing scientific about it. It's just the way that my appreciation for the way that audiences work at Brixton Academy has been amazing. But I mean, there are some worn-in venues that I wouldn't mind if they dynamited. I believe the Colston Hall is still standing.
Right.
Do I know why? No. Would it make a better anything? Yes. but it's sorry, that just takes me to pushing flight cases uphill through the snow, and it smelled of wee. It was horrible. Right. Anyway, so favorite definitely Brixton Academy, and the rest whatever.
There we go. Right, perfect. Brixton Academy it is. Right then. Obviously, in the last however many months it's been now, we've had different levels of lockdown coming on and off. If you could only have access to one musical artist or one album for an extended period of time, who would that be?
One artist would have to be David Bowie.
Okay.
One album. I mean, I wonder what. I don't think I'd pick any one of his albums particularly, because his whole catalogue is so diverse. And depending on the mood, you can go for different stuff. If there was one uplifting, I mean, because we all have needed that for the last year, I'd say the album that is guaranteed to put a smile on my face would have to probably be Faithless Reverence.
Okay.
I think it's one of the best dance albums ever, one of the best dance bands ever.
Yeah.
And also, as all of us, we all look back through rose-tinted glasses for music that spoke to a certain time in our lives. And that came out, I was still living in West London in a fairly tumble-down, with a nail and eye looking house, and having a fairly with an eye kind of experience. And so I hear it, and it brings back the memories from that as well. But I'd say Bowie would be the artist. Though. And he was, when I found out that he died, I must admit I did shed a tear. It was a weirdly emotional reaction hearing that. But
yeah, I mean, a phenomenal character, a phenomenal career that he created.
And from what I've heard from those that worked with him, a wonderful human being, which is great.
Yes. Yeah, that comes out that he was funny. He was social. He was friendly. He was just a good old guy.
And that rare word these days, kind.
Yes.
Which seems to not be worth anything anymore. People are more interested in attitude and anyway, that's my sorry. I suddenly realised I sound like someone's granddad.
Sorry, let me bring in the soapbox. Wait.
Yeah, kids these days, they don't know they're born.
That's right. That's right. When I were a lad.
Exactly.
There we are. Okay, so now if you could wind the clock back and go and visit the teenage Alex and offer him one piece of advice, what would that be?
I don't know, because I don't think the teenage me would have listened. For a start, I didn't think I was that obdurate when I was a teenager, but looking back, I mean, I've always kind of wandered around to the beat of my own drum anyway. I would probably say, listen to the advice you're being given would be the advice.
Right.
There's no one thing. I would say, look, you're going to be given advice by people who have been through what you're going through. Don't discount them.
Right.
Because to a teenager, anyone more than 6 months older than you just doesn't know what's going on, and it's all different my day and all this nonsense. But I think if I was able to impart one pearl of wisdom into my teenage self, it would be that the advice you're being given is probably quite good, and listen to it, you idiot.
Right. Yeah. Pay attention.
Pay attention.
Well, that's great. That is absolutely great advice. Yeah. Keep your ears open, listen, pay attention.
Listen to the advice. It's not bullshit.
Right. Yeah. They're saying it for a reason.
Yeah.
They know something. There we are. Brilliant. If you were able to sit down for a cup of coffee with any one person at all, either living or past, who would that be?
Of course, you think of it, the initial responses tend to be the greats, like Mozart. And then I thought that through and thought, yeah, but we don't speak the same language, so that would be rubbish. So all these are great. Churchill, David Bowie, or whatever, you know. If I could, I'd quite like to sit down and have a cup of coffee with my grandmum.
Okay.
My maternal grandmother. She was very important to me, and I didn't realize how important she was to me when I was a kid. We used to, because as you can tell by that, half the family is Canadian. Okay. And we used to go out to this tiny little town outside Montreal every summer and go and see her. And she was wonderful. And I think that would be a nice thing to do in terms of being able to talk to someone who you can't talk to right now. She's obviously
right.
But of the greats, I don't know. There's a litany of people that you look up to, but you know.
Yes.
There's no one person. I mean, I think, and perhaps maybe it's just my inner contrarian, but I'm often aware of the fact that when you meet the people who you've idolized, you realize they're actually not worth idolizing.
Right.
You know, I mean, Churchill was a pisshead. He smoked, just stank of cigars. Yeah, he'd be interesting to talk to, but after a while, like, what are you doing? You know.
Yes.
I don't know. There are loads of people who I'm sure would be fascinating to sit and have coffee with, but would I enjoy it? Possibly. Would it make a great story? Definitely. Would I prefer to sit down with my grandmother? Yeah, actually I would. Right.
Well, there we go. That's a fantastic answer. Like your grandmother is a brilliant choice. Absolutely.
Yeah. Brilliant woman.
There we are. Okay, and so we make it to our final question. It comes around real quick. Once we're done with the interview, Team USA are going to be on the phone to you, and they're going to call you up for the Olympics. Now, it could be for the Summer Games or it could be for the Winter Games. But the question is, what's the sport they're going to call you up for?
Yes. Well, it could be actually Team UK, it could be Team Canada, or it could be Team USA, because I've become citizens of all those, which is anecdotally quite funny, because the first time I had the 3 passports, I went to check into a flight. And I said to the agent, I said, well, I always feel like a bit of a spy turning up to the airport with 3 passports. And she did this brilliant thing. She just, she went, are they all in the same name, sir?
Right.
Yeah. I said, you're not a very good spy then, are you? It's not an Olympic sport, but it's something I could compete at an Olympic level at. and that would be daydreaming.
Daydreaming. Okay.
I could, as a teenager, I could look out the window for weeks, get nothing done. I wasted one of the best educations in England by staring out the window and having little thoughts to myself.
Right.
And I still do it. And I'm glad that I do that.
Yeah.
Ideas pop up. Whole stories happen. I have entire conversations with many different, it's sort of subplots and different genres. It's fun. It's great in here. You don't necessarily want to go in, but for me, it would be my Olympian sport. I'd be a gold medalist in daydreaming.
Champion daydreamer.
Yeah.
Great. Oh, well, there we go. I guess all you need is a cloudy sky and just watch them roll by. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even need that, honestly. I could be in the middle of a Zoom call. Not this one.
Thank you. There we go. Right then. Champion daydreamer it is. We'll take that. You are our first daydreamer on our 10 out of 10 Olympic squad. So
I'm sure everyone else has come up with sensible things. That's never been my way.
Right, that's perfect. That's what we like. Alex, this has been brilliant. Thank you so much for finding the time for this. I know obviously you're starting to get busy as things hopefully are turning the corner and we start to get rolling again. So it's really appreciated. Good luck obviously with all the future projects coming up, and we look forward to catching up in person at the next opportunity.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye.